Show must go on. We are recording this and we are live. My name is Sebastian. Some of you may know me as the Australian Strength Coach. This is my little sis, Dinny G.
Hey, my sister, Alicia.
And that's my wife over there. That's the Base Body Babes. And we own these gyms, which is Base Gym. Upstairs is the women's only facility, which is Base Body Studio, which is where we met our lovely friend Sue Ellen. And I'm going to keep on going for a little bit, but I will hand it over to Sue Ellen in a moment, where she's going to explain why we're all here. But I just thought we wanted to do something special for this amazing charity, and I don't know, the only thing I know how to do is teach people how to lift weights. Okay, so that was me doing something special for you guys, and hopefully attracting a large audience to come and have a great day today. It is a short day, so we finished today at 3 o'clock. But what I wanted to do was teach one of our favourite lifts, which is the deadlift. We've got some, I don't want to call her a guest, she's the host. Dinny J's going to be one of the main people demonstrating, as well as a very good friend and one of my strongest athletes on my team, and actually one of the strongest powerlifters in the world, Reese King. And they're going to be demonstrating one lift today, which is the deadlift. And the reason that we chose that lift, it's probably going to be the easiest one to get everyone involved. We've also got a few competitions.
Yes.
Look, I'll be honest with you guys, I've been told the competition standards are a little bit high.
There's a bit of a dispute.
There's been a little bit of a dispute, but the competition is essentially double body weight deadlift for as many reps as possible. Am I out of range here? Hands up, who can deadlift double body weight? Okay. That's going to be, we might change it to 1.5 times body weight for everyone here, but that doesn't change for our demonstrators. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the techniques that we like to teach for ourselves, as well as some of our amazing members of our team and some of the strongest athletes on the planet. I will say that the techniques, for our audience on YouTube, the techniques that I teach, actually my strongest deadlifter on my team just so happens to be the strongest deadlifter on the planet, and that's Hackful Bjornsson, and he's got a 501 kilogram deadlift, and the techniques that we use to teach the strongest deadlifter on the planet is the same techniques that we're going to be teaching you today. It's also the same technique, if you follow my page, that I teach my 12-year-old daughter. Okay, so a lot of people may look at what we do and say, these guys are, big and hairy and tatted and ugly and strong. It doesn't relate to me. Well, it absolutely does. The difference is how much weight we're going to be lifting, but the techniques are going to be the same for each and every one of you. And that's the gift that we're going to be giving to Kilos for a Cure today. So thank you everyone for being here. This is Sue Ellen, and she's going to tell us her amazing story. I feel a bit strange calling it an amazing story. I don't know how else to say it. Kind of left me without words when she told me the story. Without words, but a lot of tears. So welcome, Sue Ellen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. I'll put the line down. Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Sue Ellen. My husband Marino and I founded the Little Legs Foundation in memory of our daughter Allegra, who unfortunately in 2017 lost her battle with brain cancer at just 6 years old, and it was just 10 months from diagnosis. We live in hope the legacy will make a difference to the current statistics of brain cancer in children. In Australia, more children die of brain cancer than any other disease, not just any cancer, but any disease, yet it remains the least funded. The type of cancer that Allegra did have is called DIPG. It's diffuse, intrinsic, and it wrapped its way around all the vitals in her brainstem. So it's obviously very difficult to get to. And there's no way of giving chemotherapy because our brains have a blood-brain barrier which stops anything getting into the brain. In Australia, 20 kids are diagnosed every year with the type of cancer that Allegra had. Next month, it'll be 5 years since she became an angel. And those kids are only given a 9 to 12 month prognosis. So in the 5 years that Allegra's been up in the sky, she's met 100 other little children. And it affects children between the age of 5 and 8, this type of brain cancer. We're currently funding over $1.5 million worth of childhood brain cancer research in Australia. We'd like to thank Diana, Felicia and Sebastian for opening this space up to us and giving us a very rare opportunity to learn from the best and see some of the strongest athletes lift. This is strength training. What is strength? Or what does being strong mean to you? Strength is truly a personal thing. The goal is to be stronger than what you were yesterday, both physically and mentally. We witnessed firsthand the strength of a child diagnosed with a terminal illness. Allegra never let the cancer define her. She danced, swam, and played alongside with siblings and friends, just like any other little girl, until the cancer took over her body and she had no choice but to admit defeat. We daily are learning the true strength of a parent, forced to wake up each morning outliving their child. Our children, Allegra's siblings, show their strength each day, walking into a room with an angel by their side and sharing her with their friends, which you can imagine would be very hard for their friends' little minds to understand just how Allegra still very much so exists. I train upstairs with the girls. And it took a lot of strength for me to walk up those stairs earlier this year and do something for me. From when Allegra died, I couldn't even look in the mirror, to be honest. I'm now slowly allowing myself to feel good without feeling guilt. I can't thank the base family enough for everything they've given me. I know the major draw I did today was to see the seminar, but I'm so grateful to have been given the opportunity to say what was I said I know the major draw card today was for you all to be part of the seminar, but I am so very grateful to have been given the opportunity to say Allegra's name and share her legacy with you all. So for that, I thank you.
Oh, I need box tissues. Can I just say, how am I going to live now? Wow.
Okay, so thank you for listening to Sue Ellen and her story. I'm sure that touched a lot of you guys. It's pretty hard for me to hear, especially as a father as well. And okay, so today we're going to be deadlifting. So thank you to everyone who came here today. I appreciate you all being here. And what we're going to be doing is, for those of you who staggered in, we're going to be doing a few competitions today. And the main competitions that were meant to be double body weight for as many reps as possible. But we kind of quickly realised that not a lot of people will be able to participate in that. So we've changed the standards to 1.5 times body weight. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be demonstrating the techniques that we use for ourselves and our amazing team of athletes. And as we're warming up, we're going to be telling you guys exactly the techniques we want you guys to be doing. And we're going to be demonstrating them live. And although we changed the standards for you guys to 1.5 times body weight, I'm not going to be changing the standards for my athletes. They're going to be doing double body weight deadlift. So we've done the weigh-ins this morning, and Dinny weighs 52.5 kilograms. So she's got to deadlift 105 kilograms for as many reps as possible. Reese is on a diet. He's a bit skinny at the moment, so he only weighs 137 kilograms. So we're going to make him do 275 kilograms for as many reps as possible. So these are the standards that we're going to be using. Now, however you guys like to do it. Dinny is a sumo deadlifter. And Reese deadlifts properly. I mean, sorry. You know what I mean. He's a professional deadlifter. But you guys are allowed to deadlift comfortably you like, as long as we learn how to lift and have a little bit of fun and a little bit of healthy competition as well. So What then he's doing is a little bit of warm-up, so Reese has done a little bit of that. So what we're going to do is show you guys in real time how our athletes like to warm up. Do you want to come in and do a few reps? Okay, so this is the way that I like to teach our deadlift. Something that I like to do is show you guys before I start talking about it. Okay, as a personal trainer and a strength coach, when someone comes to me, let's go for 8 reps. When someone comes to me to learn how to deadlift, the first thing that I ask someone to do is show me how you deadlift. I've got a lot of cues that I love to teach, but as a coach, of course some of you might be coaches and a lot of you might not be. As a coach, it's not very effective to give a shopping list of different instructions and cues to teach someone how to lift. The first thing that I like to do is observe how the individual lifts before I start changing. And sometimes someone like Reese, I wouldn't change anything at all. In fact, I liked his deadlift so much that I modelled my deadlift off his. So this is what I consider to be, if I was to write a textbook, which I have many times, if I was to write a textbook, this is what I would consider to be the textbook conventional deadlift. Okay, so a few of the things that you saw, you know, Reese is, how tall are you, Reese? 6'3". If you have a look at his stance, he's standing roughly hip width. A lot of people think, you know, I want to stand wide, to have a nice wide base of support. Actually, this is someone who demonstrates to me that that's actually not the case. When you're that big and you still can stand with a nice narrow, I don't even want to call it a narrow stance. I consider that to be a comfortable and the strongest stance, which just so happens to be roughly around hip width. This is going to vary from lifter to lifter, and we're going to help you guys today to determine the correct stance for you guys. Okay, so let's have a look again at what Reese did. So a few things before we go to the bar. The first thing that we like to do with our deadlift is line ourselves up with the barbell. So looking from side view, what I'm looking at is the barbell over the center of his foot or his midfoot. And that's going to be in line with his center of gravity. Okay, if the barbell is too far forward from that, it's going to make that load increase exponentially. And the place that he's going to cop that is on his lower back. Okay, so what we want to do, the objective is to keep that on his center of gravity, which is going to be over his midfoot. So standing in his comfortable stance width, which is roughly hip width, with his toes are pretty much straight ahead, kind of slightly outwards, not so much. He's going to grab that bar on the outside of his arms, giving his knees just enough room to very gently push slightly outwards. Sitting into position, he pulls his armpits towards his pelvis, reaches the crown of his head towards the ceiling, takes a big breath, pushes the world away. Knees locked out, hips pushed through. Reset, hips into position, armpits to pelvis, crown of the head to the ceiling, pushes the world away. One more rep. Sits into position, armpits to pelvis, crown of the head to the ceiling, and pushes the world away. That's it. Can we get some loaders to put on a blue plate on each side? Now we're going to show you how this looks on someone much smaller. Okay? A lot of the times we preach the idea that there is no such thing as let's do middle plate, so we go bump, middle. Thank you. We teach that there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach because everyone's different. And that's so absolutely true. However, the set of the cues that we have kind of are a one-size-fits-all approach. But what you'll notice is the way that they present from lifter to lifter will be slightly different. But it's the same principles that will apply to someone big and someone small, and most likely apply to each and every one of you in the room here. Okay, so we'll have a look at how that presents on someone half the size. So Diddy, walking up to the bar in her comfortable stance. Okay, barbell is over the midfoot. Her comfortable stance is a little bit different to Reese's, but kind of the same as well. Toes pointed kind of straight ahead. She's going to bend over and grab that barbell on the outside of her legs, giving her knees just enough room to gently push outwards against the inside of her relaxed and long arms. Open hips, sitting in position, armpits to pelvis, crown of the head to the ceiling, pushes the world away. Knees locked out, hips pushed through. Sitting into position, armpits, crown of head, push the world away. Knees locked out, hips pushed through. Armpits engage the lats, which is one of our strongest muscles that are going to help support our spine and increase the rigidity of our spine and our torso, which is very important for lifting the heaviest weights possible. Not only is it important for spine safety, but it's also important for, in our line of work, for performance and lifting the heaviest weights possible. Okay, that's probably going to be Dini's only conventional deadlift. We are now going to switch over to sumo because that was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke. Sumo is not cheating. If I was good at sumo, you better believe that's what I'll be doing. I just happen to suck at it, so I stick to conventional. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or observations before we move on to the next weight? Something that we like to demonstrate for you guys is how the body presents as we go up in weight. The objective is to look exactly the same no matter what weight goes on the bar. An error that I've seen a lot in my 19 years of experience as a personal trainer and a strength coach is people rushing the warm-ups. People come up to a light weight thinking, oh, this is easy for me, so I can just slap it out and it's no problem at all. Okay, but something that you'll see with elite level lifters is how they approach the bar on every single opportunity that they get. They respect the weight. Okay, so let's go, Reese. So this is the second set for Reese. So this is generally like, he's a big and strong guy. His best deadlift is 410 kilograms. Okay, so he's literally top 7 in the world in his weight class in powerlifting. Okay, and number 1 in Australia. All right, so we can learn a lot from him. So his incremental increases, although it's 40 kilograms, for him that's pretty normal. But for us, it would probably be too big a jump. Okay, so now we go to 100 kilograms, and we're probably going to be jumping up in 40 kilos all the way up to his top set. Okay, straps is totally optional. Okay, same position, same setup. Okay, let's go 5 weights. If you have a look at it, the way that Reese likes to explode, this is unique to Reese. A lot of people like to do that. He's not just thinking about 100 kilograms, he's thinking about his top set. Okay, that's the level of intent that he's hoping to put through the bar on his top set. Okay, that is a technique. It's not a must for everybody. In fact, I quite like to reserve that for people who are a little bit more advanced. Because when we're learning a new technique, sometimes speed gets in the way of precision, but he's practiced this thousands and thousands of times, so his precision is pretty spot on. So when we're learning precision, I actually prefer to teach people, I don't like to say to lift slow, but just as explosive. Okay, so let's have a look at Dini now. Now she's going to switch over to sumo. So for all of our sumo deadlifters, I do like to start the warm-up with the conventional deadlift. Now if we have a look at her stance, this is also unique to Dini. Okay, she's got quite a wide stance for a little girl. A lot of people think, small legs should be not that wide, and if you've got really long legs, you should be even wider. This is more relative to your hip structure rather than your limb length. Okay, now her hip structure, she's got very, very mobile hips. She'd have probably a very shallow hip socket, so there's a lot of movement. She'd be able to do the splits a lot easier than I could. Okay, so for her wide stance could actually be, and probably would be a little bit too wide for someone like me, who doesn't have the hip mobility, even though my legs are longer. Okay, but roughly, something that we like to, as a starter, is we have a look at these lines here and we say, if you want to try sumo, line your shins up to those lines and see how we go. The next thing that we can look at is when she bends over and sits in position, that knee will be directly perpendicular to her foot, or directly over. Now, that's not a must, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but it's a great general start point and a guideline for your start position in a sumo deadlift. So with Dini's comfortable wide sumo stance, she's standing a little bit closer to that barbell than in a conventional, because the way she's positioned her body, when she bends over to grab the bar in a conventional, the shins will push the bar forward. But because she's standing in a sumo stance, when she bends over, the shins push outwards, so she doesn't push the barbell forward. Okay, so opening her hips, so her hips talk to her knees, talk to her feet, they all align. Okay, she's going to bend over and grab that bar. The objective is to have the arms straight down. This is where we travel the least distance. Same cues apply. Sitting into position, she's going to pull her armpits towards her pelvis, reaches the crown of the head to the ceiling, takes a big breath in the brace, pushes the world away. Legs locked out, hips pushed through. Sits into position, lats, crown of the head, push. We think push, not pull. The body knows to pull. We have no choice but to pull. Okay, but one of the most important parts of a strong deadlift is leg drive, which is why we emphasize the word push as a cue rather than pull that weight off the ground. We already know that. Any questions or observations? Yes?
The foot angle, like how do you determine?
So the foot angle, as a general guide, we like to say roughly 45 degrees. Okay, now I'm not going to get my ruler out and measure all of these things, but we kind of look, roughly 45 degrees. Now, a cue that I've recently learned is the angle of the femur, which is the upper thigh bone, should be the angle of the foot. Okay, so this aligns. Okay, so if your hips are open and your feet are straight here, okay, this just doesn't really match. Okay, so these are just guides that we don't need rulers for, but we can learn to eyeball these things. Okay, same applies to having the feet out too much like this. Okay, we've lost a large base of support. Okay, so a lot of people find that when they switch from conventional to sumo, they've got a short base of support from the back of the heel to the front of the toe. Turning the foot outwards decreases that space, so it decreases our balance. Okay, so those are the factors that we want to consider, but if there was a general answer, 45 degrees. Okay. Back to let's go to a conventional deadlift. Again, same incremental increase. I want you guys to remember what the 100 kilograms look like, and the 60 kilograms. And now, for the sets moving forward, I want you to remember what 140 kilograms looks like. So as we go up in weight, we reduce the reps. The idea of a warm-up is to stimulate, not annihilate. Okay, I would go as far as to say Reese is already warm now, but it doesn't mean he qualifies to go straight to his top weight yet, because he needs to engage his nervous system and teach his body what these extra loads are going to feel like. Okay, so 140 kilos on the bar, bars over the midfoot, same cues. Let's go 3 reps. Okay, so as the weight goes heavier, the reps go lower and lower. Okay, his arms are on the outside of his legs. The same rule applies with his arms being ideally straight down. If he goes wide with his grip, he's going to have to travel too far to lift that weight off the ground. Sits into position, lats, head to ceiling, pushes the wall away. Any questions or observations? I'm going to anticipate some questions here.
I just have a general one in terms of the grip.
Yes.
Knee is like obviously having goals knee.
Yep.
Which is, I guess, like the stronger grip to hold. Okay. Is there any benefit in keeping it?
Yeah. So Reese now is competing in strongman. He's Australia's best powerlifter in his weight class, but he likes the challenge, so he's changing to strongman. Now in strongman, you're allowed to use straps. In powerlifting, you're not. So it's always an advantage to have more symmetry in a deadlift, because this creates an imbalance slightly. Okay, but with Dinny, I don't know if she might use straps later on.
Depends what you make me do.
I believe she's actually stronger with bare hands. Okay, if you are to use straps, I recommend double overhand so that you avoid any of those imbalances or asymmetries. Okay, but if you are to compete in powerlifting, you need to learn how to grip the barbell without straps. And a double overhand grip, the barbell rolls out of your hands. Okay, so when you have one hand under, one hand over, there's no more rolling. Okay, so I don't even have to grip it. Like grab the bar with my hand and then grip in my hand, because there's no more rolling. Okay, so there's definitely pros and cons of each. But if you're not ever to compete in powerlifting, I've got a professional boxer that just started training with me yesterday, and we deadlifted with straps, and I'm going to continue using straps up until his fight day, because he doesn't need to grip a barbell in his sporting competition. So my preference for him is symmetry and perfection as far as I can take that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Like, you don't worry about potentially switching, you just find that whatever.
Yeah, yes and no. So this is an interesting thing, and it's another very common question. Okay, is how to avoid any asymmetries forming. Is one way is doing one set with this alternate grip and then switch to the next set. Now at the highest level, this will interfere with the entire pathway. Now, here's an example of this. Everyone do this. Cool. Now, switch it to that, which is essentially the same thing, but how different does it feel? Okay, it's the same as how that deadlift feels. So at the highest level, perfect practice makes perfect. The way you chalk your hands, the amount of steps you take to approach the bar, the amount of breaths you take to grab that bar, everything is a pre-lift ritual that the highest level athletes of any sport, not just lifting weights, but that's something that you'll see, whether it's soccer players, tennis players, how many times they bounce that ball before they take the swing. Everyone has the same ritual every single time they approach that weight. Okay, so a small change like that will absolutely interfere with your performance at the highest level. If you're a novice, you're probably not going to notice it that much. Okay, but my recommendation is to keep the same grip. Now here's my next recommendation, is to only do that grip for 1 to 5 reps and for your deadlift practice, and then whenever we do higher rep range, do double overhand and straps to avoid creating any imbalances. That seems to be the best solution so far that I've been able to see in my career. Any more questions? Does that make sense?
Yep. So yeah, just more on that. So like for longevity, I guess like a lot of us in here train not from a sports perspective, or
Yes.
for the people that do coach, would you just suggest that it would be double overhand without straps? As
Yes.
just for general purpose training?
Totally. I have no problem with that. If you were to never compete in powerlifting, I have no problem with using straps. I don't consider the deadlift as this is a great exercise to develop your grip strength. I see it as a great exercise to develop your posterior chain, your back, your glutes, your legs. I'd much rather develop those muscles and use the exercise for that and not let grip be a limiting factor.
Yeah.
But lifting's fun. A lot of the times you don't have to. I train so many people that are phenomenally strong but don't compete because people just love the thrill of coming in and lifting. And sometimes people just want to know that they can hold on to that weight. And in those instances, it's not doing any harm to follow the same rules. So it's not set in stone, it's not gospel, it's not science that 1 to 5 rep range with over under and then the rest is double overhand. That's just a solution that I've created that's worked successfully so far. But if you never wanted to hold the bar in a mixed grip and you never powerlifted, I'd say keep doing that. Okay, who's up? Okay, so same setup for Dinny. She's walking up to the bar in her comfortable wide stance. Shins are pretty much touching the bar here. Ideally, we want the bar, when she starts lifting, we want that bar in contact with her body the entire rep. If it drifts forward, it's going to tell me she doesn't have her lats on. Her lats are going to pull the bar in towards her body. Okay, sitting in her comfortable position, arms straight down. Sits her hips in, pulls her arms into her pelvis, reaches the crown of the head to the ceiling, and think push, not pull. Open hip position, the knees are in line, the hips are in line with the knees, are in line with the feet. It's all aligned. Armpits to pelvis, head to ceiling, push through all the way. Knees locked out, hips pushed through in that order. And relax. Any questions or observations?
Quick question, just going back on when you mentioned the boxer. Is there a reason why, I mean, he started training with the straps.
Yes.
Does it affect his performance in any way with his boxing, not using the straps? Is that a negative effect?
Absolutely not. The objective, we need to consider these exercises are simply tools to achieve whatever objective we may have. Now, a boxer, early in my career, the first professional athlete that I ever trained was a professional MMA fighter. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy's a pro athlete. I need to really pull out some fancy exercises because he's a pro. And it wasn't too long that I learned that, yeah, he's a pro at his sport, but in here, he's an amateur. So for me, I was teaching him a snatch, and I'd never performed a snatch before because it was fancy, right? So that was a big mistake that I learned very quickly. Okay, so we don't have to be super fancy. What we need to do and this is my theory of training any athlete of any sport. I'm not teaching a boxer how to throw a punch. I'm not teaching a basketball player how to shoot hoops or a football player how to kick a ball. I'm strengthening their body, strengthening every joint in their body through a full range of motion so that they have a strong body that moves well and is free from injury. And then they go to their sports coach to teach them all of that. Okay, we don't imitate the skill of the sport in this room here. And if you try to do that, you're going to do them a disservice. I'll pause every time an aeroplane goes over because we're in Marrickville. The finer the motor skill, okay, so, or in other words, the more complex the movement in the playing field, the easier it is to mess it up by adding load to it. So that's what I used to do when I first started martial arts. I'd pick up heavy weights and thinking I'm going to get a really strong punch. Actually, no. You'll slow down your punch. You'll muck up the motor pattern. Okay, the best way to develop that motor pattern is to practice that motor pattern, okay, by hitting a bag, hitting a person. What weight should you go up to? The weight of the gloves is the maximum. That's it. Sprinting, they find that, they try to add weights, weight vests to people sprinting. I'll tell you what that gets you good at, running with weight vests. Okay, but actually it doesn't increase your stride speed, okay, and in fact it slows high-level sprinters down. Okay, the best way to improve your stride speed is to run as you would in competition. And the same applies with all sports. Okay? Now, remember, let's go 2 reps here. Okay? Remember what the set before looked like. So we're going up to 180 kilograms. Okay? So if we look at, I don't want to put him off here. Hopefully he's not listening to me. Okay? He's walking up to the bar the same way as what he did on his last set. He's strapping the bar up the same way as he did in his last set, and he's going to do it in his next set as well. Sitting in his position. So this little jolt that he has, that's his thing. Armpits, head to ceiling, drives that weight up explosively. Any questions or observations? I can't stress this enough. That technique that he's using, I believe in it so much that I've modeled my technique off it. And that's how I teach my highest level athletes, because it works and it's that's as efficient as it gets. However, if you're a beginner, my advice to you is don't explode because Reese explodes. Does that make sense? Okay, we master things like precision, tension, and technique, and then we add speed. Not the other way around. Yes?
Just an observation on obviously the therapy. This is just trying to get as close to the ground as possible.
Absolutely. If you see the highest level deadlift competitions in the world, you'll see part of the rule is you need to wear footwear. So that's, I believe, just for insurance purposes. Okay, but their way around it is a deadlift slipper, which is essentially 2 millimeter sole, and it's a sock. Okay, because yes, if I'm deadlifting with these aren't so bad because it's minimal cushioning in these shoes, but even that minimal cushioning is an extra centimeter that I need to travel. And now let's exaggerate the analogy. Imagine standing on your bed mattress and deadlifting. Imagine the instability compared to having your bare feet on that hard surface. Okay, so it's stability and a decrease of the range of motion. Does that make sense? Right. Now, it changes the sumo deadlift, because if you wear slippers in a sumo deadlift, some people find that they slip. So a lot of sumo deadlifters like to wear different footwear, similar to this. Okay, same setup every single time. We've got 75 kilograms on the bar. Look at her arm width. Okay, for a lot of people I do say that it's straight down, but Denny's got quite small shoulders and her arm straight down might fall on the smooth part of the bar. And a lot of high-level lifters that are tiny, if they grab the bar with their arms in line with their shoulders, so arms straight down, they're going to be on the smooth part of the barbell, which isn't very grippy. Remember, in powerlifting, you're not allowed to use straps. Okay, so in those instances, it's totally fine to widen the grip very slightly so that you've got a better purchase or a better grip of that bar. Okay? However, if we understand, arms straight down is the distance least traveled. The wider we go, the more we have to travel, the harder the movement becomes. Okay, standing in her comfortable wide stance. Hip talks to knee, talks to foot. Angle of femur, angle of foot. Same. Same speed. Opens her hips, armpits to pelvis, head to the ceiling. Listen to the bar slide up her body. Shh. Okay, every time. She wants to keep it in contact with her body. Okay? If the barbell drifts away from the body, it tells us two things. Okay, the bar's not on her center of mass, so it's going to make it harder. And two, she doesn't have her lats on. If her lats are on, that's the cue, armpits to pelvis. Okay, if her lats are off, that's a large muscle. Come over here, Denny. Does everyone know what the lat is? That's one of our strongest upper back muscles that we have. The lat attaches to the front of this bone here. Okay, this bone is called the humerus. It attaches to the front of that. Okay, and it comes okay, underneath, and attaches from the front of this arm, front of this bone, all the way down to the top of the pelvis. Okay, so it crosses the longest distance of our spine of all of our core muscles. So people consider core to be the six-pack muscles here. No, we've got about 10 core muscles. And the lats are one of them. Okay, so the lats, whenever we're loading our spine, and this applies to squats as well, any exercise that we load our spine, I want you guys to do it while we're sitting there. Just that cue, armpits to pelvis. Okay, so just this part here, just that area, pull it down. Okay, so that's also considered depression of the scapula. So that's the scapula as this shoulder blade, pulling it down towards the back pocket. Okay, so that's called depression of the scapula, and that's a great way of allowing us to engage our lats. Engaging our lats supports our spine. It increases the rigidity of our torso. Anyone deadlift in the gym and the back goes, like a fishing rod? Okay? Engaging the lats is the best cue that I have, or armpits and pelvis is the best cue that I have to help strengthen that structure so that that fishing rod thing doesn't happen. Okay? Any questions? Okay. We've got 5 plates here, so we're going from 180 to 220. Right about now, I'll say, let's do singles. Most welcome, sir. Okay, so every single time it's the same setup. Okay? He's allowed to use this equipment in strongman. So that's a soft belt underneath his regular belt. And he's allowed to use straps. And in training, we're all allowed to use straps. Barbell is over his midfoot. Okay, when he's standing there, the bar's about an inch away from his shins, but when he sits into position, the bar's on his shins. Listen for the bar sliding up his body. Same speed, same intensity, same approach every single time he comes to the bar. Any questions or observations?
Just how do you teach your athletes to brace into the belt?
Okay, so a very simple way is to think of that belt is 360 degrees around the torso to push all of our body into that belt, not just here.
Expand out.
Expand your entire midsection, your back as well. So something that I didn't really think too much about, I just knew how to do it. I just knew from using the belt for so many years that it was strong. I used to just think, take a big breath and hold your breath, which kind of works as well. Okay, but ideally, that's what we want to be feeling, is to push our body. So our core isn't, as I said before, we've got about 10 core muscles. It's not just limited to the six-pack muscles that we see, the rectus abdominis. Okay, we've got everything surrounding us. Okay, and you'll feel the belt actually is a great tool to teach someone how to brace. Because it's hard to tell somebody to expand back here unless there's something touching it. Okay, so that's the beauty of a belt. It provides us with kinesthetic feedback of how to use all those muscles surrounding our spine. Okay, so pushing into the belt. The next thing is this. A lot of people, something that you haven't heard me say yet is straighten hit your back. Okay, because that's not a cue that I think is valuable. They both have rigid torsos and their backs are perfectly straight for this movement. But it's not a cue that I focus on. Okay, because what a lot of people do when they focus on straight back is arch their back to prevent it from rounding this way. That's not strong and it's not entirely correct. Okay, in fact, if you looked at both of these lifters from side on, you would see that it's not arched. So the spine naturally has curvature and the lower part of our back is naturally somewhat arched. You will never see a world record deadlift performed with that arch. Okay? In fact, it's potentially dangerous because when we're arching, we're loading structures of the spine which aren't supposed to be loaded. They're called facet joints. So technically, it's safe and strong to slightly unload those facet joints. Okay, so the next thing with bracing is what a lot of people do is that incorrectly is they arch their back too much, which elongates these muscles. We don't want to elongate, we want to brace these muscles. So another thing, instead of just thinking of expanding into the belt, which is a great cue, is thinking about drawing the rib cage towards the pelvis slightly. Okay, which is what you'd probably do if I wanted to punch you in the belly and you wanted to brace for that. Okay, so drawing the rib cage towards the pelvis, expanding into the belt and taking a full breath with our diaphragm is the way that we brace. Okay, 85 kilograms, same setup. Standing in her comfortable wide stance. The foot angle is the same as her femur angle. Nice open hips, the knees don't buckle in. Okay, armpits, crown of the head and the ceiling, braces. So she's breathing into her belt and she pushes the wall away. If I put my finger here, I can feel it. But the moment she braces, my finger's stuck. Okay, so she's not bracing the whole time. It also shows us that you don't have to just put the belt on as tight as possible. Okay, in many instances I advise against that. Sometimes that switches our core off. I've made that mistake many times. Just go tighter if you want to lift heavier. It's not how it works. Okay, you want a small amount of room to push out into.
Can I ask, I don't deadlift much, and I don't use a belt. So should I be using a belt even as a beginner?
No, not necessarily. So let's use my daughter as an example. She's the beginner. She's 12 years old, hasn't used a belt yet. If she said to me, Dad, I want to compete in a couple of months, which I doubt she'll say, I'd say, well, let's learn how to use a belt because it's going to allow us to use a tool to increase the rigidity and the strength of your torso so we can lift the heavier weight. But right now, I want to strengthen her core without the belt. Now, disclaimer, using a belt doesn't not strengthen your core. In fact, research shows us that the belt allows us to increase activation of certain core muscles. Okay, so arguably, we can strengthen our core more with the use of a belt. Okay, but it is a skill, and I think we need to earn the right to have that skill. However, as I said, as a beginner, my daughter came to me now and said, let's compete. Oh yeah, it's like if you're going to play soccer, we're going to use soccer boots. You're not going to use sneakers just because you're a beginner, right? We're going to use the equipment that allows us to perform at the highest level to compete in that sport. Okay, so you're not a bad person if you don't ever use a belt. There's some high-level athletes that don't. Dmitry Klokov is a high-level weightlifter that doesn't. And I think he's doing himself a disservice, but his gold medals tell me otherwise. So, but yeah, I think if you wanted to compete in powerlifting, I'd recommend chuck it in. If not, you never have to use it ever. And it's not going to be dangerous to load your spine without a belt. Our core structure is strong, and especially if we train it to be even stronger. Okay, so the next increment, this will be Reese's last warm-up. This is 260 kilograms. Okay. You know, to be honest with you, for Reese, like most of his deadlift sessions are a lot heavier than 260. Like we don't do, so this is called AMRAP, as many reps as possible. That's what the competition is today, because it's a little bit nicer than doing a 1 rep max, which is a higher risk of injury. Okay, so 260 kilograms, let's have a look at the setup. Same thing every time. We'll put music on. Normally he would have music on for each of his sets, but for the purpose of this discussion, he's fine to go without. But we will create some music on his top set. Same setup. He's not just wrapping his hands on the bar, he's getting his mind ready. He does that same jerk every time. Takes the same amount of breaths like out of the bar. Okay. Any questions or observations?
Pulling the slack out of the bar before you push it, right?
Yes. So taking the slack out of the bar is something that I believe that everyone should do. Okay, very rarely do I speak in absolute, so very rarely will I say, you must do this. But I believe that at the highest level, the best people do it. Okay, so what that does is it increases tension on our body and on the bar, and it allows us to brace and position ourselves. Okay, so it's like this. What a lot of people do when they don't take the slack out of the bar, imagine this is your arms and your body, they'll go from here and they'll attempt to rip that weight off the ground. Taking the slack out, imagine this, we want to stretch our body, then drive. Okay, so it's not just the body that we want to stretch, it's if you see I'm bending the bar slightly, slight bend of the bar, I've got tension on my arms, I've got tension through my body, and it's also giving me an opportunity to feel where the weight is distributed across my foot. Okay? The difference between a deadlift and say a squat. The squat starts with the down phase. It gives us an opportunity to feel where that weight is distributed so that we can set ourselves up for a strong up phase. Deadlift, no. We have to start with the up phase. So we have to create that tension. Okay, so if we are just loose and we go, oh, this is where I could have most of my weight distributed on the front of my foot. And this is where people make mistakes. Either you don't lift as heavy or you potentially injure yourself. Okay, so taking the slack out of the bar is an important cue that we recommend. And everyone does it at different phases. So let's have a look at how Dinny does it. Shins on the bar, open hips. Arms straight down. Armpits, pelvis round, head to the ceiling, slack out. Push. Any questions or observations? Okay, so the next step for both of our lifters is our top step. So we'll probably put on favourite songs. Oh, I don't know, how many reps can you do? It's not the way right. Okay, so this is going to be double body weight for Reese. Any bets?
13.
13? Oh, that is so mean. Imagine that. 7? That's insulting a little bit.
That's 10 then, right?
Say that again?
The middle is 10.
Yeah, I like that. That's the number that I had in mind. And what about for Dinny?
Okay, more than that.
Who's stronger, Dinny or Reese?
Diddy.
Dinny's stronger. We're going to give him an opportunity to get set up. Does anyone have any questions about anything before we set up?
If you, like over your time, have you found that there's a right time to start using belts versus like through it, like are you using it all the way through, or are you popping on 80%?
Okay. So I thought you meant like in someone's lifting career, what's the right time to start? Which I didn't have an answer to. But as in, there is no such right time. You can justify it and say any time is the right time. Within the session, I'm quite different. I like to introduce the belt early. Okay, a lot of people say, I want to strengthen my core and do my warm-ups without the belt, so I don't become too reliant on the belt. My solution to that is do belted work and do unbelted work. But the brace with the belt is a specific technique. Perfect practice makes perfect. Just as I want him to do his first weight, which is just 60 kilograms, give us a song. I want him also to feel the belt. I want him also to feel the brace and the technique with the belt from early on. Okay, I wasn't actually even paying attention to what these guys were doing. But I know that he was using straps from 100 kilograms, and I know he can hold on to that bar without straps with much more than 100 kilograms. But they just use it to get themselves in the right training floor. Hey, do we have internet on? Is it on?
Is the internet not working?
My Spotify is on for some reason. That's okay. No, it's because let me see
It's taking up stuff. The TV could be taking up a lot of the...
Okay. Questions or observations? 275 kilograms. So I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something about the background of training and how it all works. For him to be able to compete for a deadlift, he's not that strong every day. Okay? Something like that is probably going to ruin his training for the next week. Okay, so it'll probably take him a good week to recover from that to be able to perform at a high level again. Now the same applies for what did he do? Yesterday he did a heavy log press day where he loaded his back, and 2 days before that he did his heavy deadlifts. So today was, all in the good name of a great day, lifting, kilos for a cure kind of thing, where he's come and performed for us, and of course he said yes. Okay, so this is not supposed to be best, but it's still pretty damn incredible. And now, Lily's in trouble because she's got a big 10. Well, she doesn't have to. Perfect. I'm not sure. I'm garage.
She's like, then he's a show off. Okay, so 30 reps, I wasn't expecting that. So before she started, I kind of said to her, give me 20.
What if I get 30?
30. I thought you were going to stop on 29.
Yeah. No, I couldn't do that.
Okay, any questions or observations? Because after this, you guys are up. Someone's going to beat Denise. Any takers?
Not today. When you're sinking in position for the conventional deadlift, is just how far you sink down, is that just when you sink the bar?
Yes and no. It's not about don't bend so far that the shins hit the bar. We want, we set it up so the shins hit the bar when the barbell is exactly over the midfoot. So the objective, people with different proportions might be able to start with a lower hip position. So, for example, this bone here is your femur. If people have a shorter one of those, they can sit lower. Because the length of this bone, a short one of those won't push the shin forward. If you've got a really long one of those are the people that end up with high hip position in the deadlift. Because if you try to sit as low as, say, thinning, you're going to push the bar forward. And it's not just like the shins have to be on this angle or your bum's going to be at a certain point. Because if everyone's bum was at the same point, and if you've got long femurs and your bum was nice and low, that barbell could be way too far forward from your center of mass. And if that's the case, the lift is going to be weak. So a lot of people, to have a one-size-fits-all approach with hip height is wrong. So the only way you can tell what's right for you is trial and error. Okay, but objectively, a great way to measure that from is side view. Okay, something that a lot of people do as well, which I don't know, maybe you guys might be able to resonate with, is they go bum up, bum down, drive, bum up, bum down, drive. And what that does, it's them trying to create momentum. But a lot of the times, one of my lifters did this in competition 2 weeks ago. He attempted 400 kilogram deadlift like that. And he went bum up, bum down, bang, shins pushed the bar forward, bang, went to lift 400 kilograms with the barbell this much forward from your center of mass, the lift ain't happening at those levels. If you was just lifting, 100 kilos or whatever, I can bump that forward and lift it from here, no problem. But as the weight gets heavier, the accuracy must get finer and finer. Okay? So this is why I talk about don't lift explosive like the way that Reese does everything really explosive. Excellent for someone who's mastered that precision. Most people haven't mastered that precision. And I'll tell you something, Phil Bjornsson doesn't. Even though he has mastered the precision. So just because an elite lifter does it explosively doesn't mean that's the way that you do it. Okay, because I can still point out some elite lifters that do everything slow and controlled. Deadlifting doesn't have to be explosive. Okay, powerlifting are slow speed lifts actually. Okay, and a big disadvantage that a lot of people make is the idea of I want to train to be explosive in my sport, so therefore I'm going to lift weights explosively. Precision beats power, timing beats speed. Where did that come from? Conor McGregor. It applies here. It applies here. Precision beats power. For everything we want precise. So when people do all these elaborate setups where they try and explode into the lift, it might look really dynamic and fancy. I tell people to slow it down. Sit into position. Hold that position. Don't use the momentum thing. Okay? Hold position. Slack out. Okay? Push. Precise. Everything precise. Exactly in line with the midfoot. Okay? So your hip height is unique to you. And I'll help you, and our amazing coaches today are going to help you guys determine that if you're not sure. Okay. Any more questions? I've lost my voice. Which is handy in a seminar. Okay guys, what we've got here, is anyone not confident to lift like 40 kilograms? We have a 10 kilogram bar here. Okay, we have a technique bar. I'd love it if you guys lift. You don't have to compete. You don't have to lift as much as possible, but we've got this is what my daughter used to practice on. 10 kilogram bar and 2.5 on each side, so that's 15 kilograms. Okay, apart from that, all of these bars that you see here are the same barbells that you see in the highest level competition in the world. Okay, they're deadlift bars. And the platforms here, this is me anticipating a question that wasn't asked. Did you guys notice how they were dumping the bar after every rep? Totally fine. Okay, if you were in a commercial gym, it's kind of frowned upon because it's noisy. Okay, but here, when I teach a deadlift, it's a concentric movement. We don't factor in the eccentric, or it's an up phase movement, we don't factor in the down phase. Okay, in fact, when sometimes when people are trying to be too polite with the down phase, they can injure themselves. Because the down phase is a slightly different technique again. Okay, so what we want to do is essentially, okay, drive and then kind of a controlled drop. These floors can handle it. These weights are made for that.